We're good to go? Hello? Oh, yep, we're good. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I am Shaquanna Joseph. I am a strategic account director at Group Black, and I am super excited to kick things off today with this amazing panel that I have here to talk about all things Black culture and how it's truly impacting the world, not just domestically, but on an international scale. So I'm sharing the stage with powerhouses in their own right, Kai, Melissa, Abdul, who are all founders, they're waymakers, they're innovators, really transforming how we look at Black culture, again, like I said, not just in the States, but on a global scale. And I could sit up here and read your bios, but I think everyone does it best when they can give their own 30-second spiel about who they are. So I will let you all take it away, starting with you, Kai.
You cheated. No, it's fine. I'm Kai Deborah Lawson. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I am the co-founder, head of culture and strategy for Valerie, an agency. We focus or specialize in cultural strategy and creative execution and all things culture, which is something I'm passionate about. And so I'm excited to be here with y'all today. Anything else I need to answer?
No, not yet.
All right, Ben.
Did I hear HU?
You
Yeah.
know, you know.
Oh, man. A two-time PWI graduate, but I am activating at
We
the
love
other
you.
HU next week.
That's okay.
Melissa
It's
C.
all right.
Potter, Executive Director of Paramount Global's Content for Change initiative. I know a little bit about being Black, been doing it for a couple of decades, so excited for this conversation with y'all.
Yes, hello everybody. I'm happy to be here. Thank you to Group Black for having us. My name is Abdul Kareem Abdullah. I'm the founder CEO of Culture Management Group and Afrofuture Festival. Some of you may know it as Afrocello before, but it's now Afrofuture Festival. And we exist simply to connect the global Black diaspora using simple concepts of food, music, art, and fashion to tell stories that bring people together.
Thank you. And I love that you mentioned the global Black diaspora, given that we as a people are not monolithic. Like, I'm here, we live in New York, so every time Labor Day comes around, I'm like, you know, I'm the girl without a flag, so I just claim one and have a good time. But I love the fact that I have friends from all across the diaspora, whether it's Afro-Latino to being directly or being first immigrants from the continent itself. So I would love for you all to just share a little bit about your background before we dive into this.
Absolutely. I'd love to define my Blackness. And I like the fact that we actually get to talk about Black culture in the context of, yes, Black American culture, but how that even within itself defines this diverse spectrum of what that means. And so culturally, by birth, I am first generation American. My parents hail all the way from Latin America. My father's Panamanian. Shout out to those of you that may have grown up with crazy people like that. They're wonderful, though. And my mother's Costa Rican. She's such a doll. And I think being first generation with parents who English was not their first language, growing up in the suburbs of Philadelphia and in the Catholic Church, and just having this access to try to figure out what does it mean to be who I am. There was this really amazing moment growing up where, you know, you have to define yourself in so many different spaces, in spaces where my friends are growing up and they're African American. And so I get to learn a little bit about, you know, that journey and that experience and their history, and being able to find the areas of overlap between my Latin American heritage and what kind of foods are similar and what kind of traditions are similar. And so I bring a lot of that experience into the work I do, not just bringing it in to share my point of view, but also recognizing the spaces to ask questions, because I recognize I don't know everything, no matter what a creative team may ask me, you know, well, what do you think people do? Baby, I don't know, it's a whole bunch of us. So like that's my perspective on it, and that's what I'm bringing to this conversation.
Sounding all exotic. So I jokingly say that I'm plantation Black, but it is actually not a joke, because I am so proud to be in this country, representative of my ancestors' wildest dreams. Born and raised New Yorker, but with that comes culture, right? Hip hop, sports, so many identities that are associated with the Black American cultural experiences originated here. So I am just proud to be a champion of that and to continue to do it at a high level.
Yeah, similar to them, I'm first generation everything. My parents are from Ghana. I was born in the Bronx. So it's interesting. I love to say this, but to my family, I was American, but in school, I was the African kid. So, you know, I think identifying identity and understanding myself as who I am and who I am to people as they interact with me is something that I've had to learn over the time, right? And I've leveraged my position as someone that considers themselves being in the middle to be able to kind of galvanize people and explain, all right, these are the similarities that exist between us. We always talk about the differences, but let's focus on the similarities and things that can bring us together, and we've been able to do that.
For sure. And okay. And with that, you've all been able to take your cultural experiences and your understandings of culture as it is and create these positions for yourselves, whether it's through your own businesses or with you, Melissa, creating it in a place like Paramount where you get to bring this content to the forefront. So can you discuss some of the specific challenges and obstacles that you face as you are on this journey to bring Black culture to the world? Whoever wants to start first.
I mean, for me, my business is halfway around the world. Most of my business is done in Africa. I started out in Ghana, but now we have a footprint, 5 additional countries. And although, people tend to think of Africa, when they think of Africa, they think about it as a country. But there are 54 different countries in Africa, and within those countries, the cultures are so dynamic and so different. So there is a lack of understanding and a lack of undereducation around what it means to be African, what is the African experience, who are they, what do they want to say. In times like this where we're getting people like Elsa Majimbo, who is being able to express herself, that's a great example of something that has come out where now that everyone loves Burna Boy and everybody wants to dance and eat jollof rice, we're able to change the narrative around certain things. But where are the stories? Where's the information? How are we doing research, right? So if a sponsor or a partner wants to do something on the continent, how are they measuring that? How are they understanding that? So for us, some of those things are the challenges. We've been able to scale from 5,000 to 41,000 over 2 years. We work with almost any big Fortune 500 company around the world, but we had to do a lot of convincing to get them there, right? So for me, it's about sustainability and how do we grow from Ghana into other parts of Africa and grow with the people, not against the people.
I can echo that as far as sustainability. Something that I always champion is that Black culture is not to be ambulance chased. And so in a post-2020 environment, we all know we were the culture du jour. Everyone cared, everyone was passionate. And then we turned around 2 years later and was like, who, what, defund. So looking at Paramount, for example, I always say I'm an MTV kid and I know what it means to have our culture represented at a global scale on and off screen. And so we did not always get it right. There was a time where MTV didn't play Black music at all. And it was David Bowie that called us out for it. So with the power and the position that I have, it really is important to me to make sure across our entire portfolio, we are telling stories with nuance. We are having the people reflected behind the camera of those that are reflected on screen. It is so easy to say, oh my gosh, we have 40 new Black male characters in X upcoming show. Hiding the secret that they are all in a prison cell on scene, right? So really calling to task what is happening, what are viewers seeing, but what are folks also experiencing as we seek careers in front of them behind the camera.
For me, it's mostly about storytelling and just opening everyone's aperture to understanding that diversity of what Black culture is, Black American culture is, whether that's in the work, whether that's just in conversation, because I think it's when we tell those stories, no matter how nuanced they are, when it is a group of 5 women in Harlem, but they all represent different areas of the diaspora, or we're looking at a quick clip in a Super Bowl spot, and you get to see different careers being shown as to what Black people actually can do and who they are. For me, that's what's most important, because when we look at it from a global scale, sometimes people only know Black American culture from what they see on the TV, and we've been telling 1 or 2 stories for so long that I find it like my gift, my passion, my opportunity to help to expand that and make it impact people so they understand just how different and beautiful and vibrant we are.
It's not a question on the cards, but do you think the breakers in the Olympics took it from TV?
I do. It's a good question. It's a funny question. I mean, I was cracking jokes all summer about it, but I think that's exactly what happened. It's this idea, the confidence that some people have by viewing Black culture coming, breaking hip hop and all of its tenets came from the Bronx. And as we even look at hip hop in general, as a lot of people are getting into the game and taking different areas of it and adopting it as their own, if you don't understand the core story about it and the importance of it, it's easy to just be like, what's the kid from Mad TV? Look what I can do. Like, it's easy to be a steward and just copy and do something and think I did something fantastic, when it's like there's a reverence that you're supposed to bring to these sports. There's a reason why it was entered as a sport for this year's Olympics, and it's because it is athletic. It's because it is an art. It's because it does take years, not just of theoretical study in school, but actually there's a practicum that you should probably pass also before you get on stage with people who've been doing this their whole lives. And so, yeah, I do think that's absolutely a part of it. And I commend I commend Reagan's attempt and her bravery for getting on that stage, but I will continuously say, for someone who has a PhD in this, shame on you for not putting in enough work to make sure that your level of, girl, just making it look good. Like, make sure it looks good before you send it to the client. Like, that's it.
And I would say, too, beyond breakdancing, there are so many tenets of hip-hop culture that get mimicked in a way that you kind of got to laugh about, and you kind of have to call out. I think we let a lot slide. In my past life, I was a celebrity publicist, and I represented Grandmaster Flash. I got to see firsthand, like, the science and the art of DJing. And today, it's a lot of plug and play, but some folks are getting more gigs than others.
Yeah, 100%.
Fun fact, we did a song with Grandmaster Flash back in the day. Yeah, we sang back up, like real life.
Yeah, signed our lives away that day. But and to that point, like, Black culture continues to transform the way we consume and create. So how are you kind of managing that as you go through this, knowing that ultimately a lot of the people who are coming to you don't understand, or don't do the due diligence to truly know what they want and how it should be portrayed?
For us, it's a lot of education. We've kind of leaned into education as a vertical to educate not only people on the ground on the continent who are looking to creators or looking to work with international companies, but also on the outside, people coming in to understand what is happening on the ground, what are they doing, what are they learning, what do they want to do, what can they do, and documenting that is some of the things that we've kind of leaned into to kind of help educate people. It's one thing to be offended, right? So I think some of the things that we're saying here is more like constructive criticism, right? It's not that she couldn't go up there and break dance, but it's just kind of like there's so many people that have been doing this their whole life that never got an opportunity, right? And they would never get that opportunity, but she got the opportunity. And I think that some of the things that we are leaning into from my company perspective is learning how to be able to present people in a way that they can be ready for that opportunity when it comes.
I think it's really important, yes, I started my own agency, but I also come from the agency. Like, my entire career has been on the creative side of the agency world. And, there have been so many times to my detriment that I've had to be the person to really champion, hey, we are not showing this specific cohort of Black people in the proper way. The amount of hard conversations and arguments even that I've had to have about we should not be showing Black people as only poor. We should not be showing them as dying of things they don't die of. We don't need to put forward a propaganda of, just poverty and sickness and detriment to drive home an affinity or any affection for this community. And I think that our industry specifically, especially on the creative side, really likes to make people sad about Blackness, when for those of us who live it and love it and enjoy the dynamics of it, we understand it is a celebration, and despite of what we may have experienced, it is love, it is community, it is sharing. Look at how much of culture we share. And I think it's very important that we tell those that are looking to engage in the culture but don't understand that exactly what it is. We are not only poor. We have some very rich people that I would love to give me money right now. There are some people, yes, that we are susceptible to certain kinds of diseases, but we have healthy people all over the world and people who are really into health and wellness. And I think that that balance is important to share.
Yeah, and I would say a combination of both worlds, whereas in 2020, I started the MTV Culture Orientation Program. And that was because at the time, cancel culture was something that everyone had knots in their stomach about at a corporate level. And we said, we'll take the counsel versus cancel approach by educating you, by working with partners. I always say I'm not the expert, but I am the expert convener. So I'm going to bring folks from GLAAD, NAACP, Color of Change to the table, and we are going to create this mandatory 2-hour workshop. All of our talent has to partake in it. Everyone working on any of our shows internally and third-party production company partners. And then if you fail to show joy and resilience, if you continue to lean on stereotypes and tropes, then we'll cancel you after that.
That's a wonderful approach,
like that.
given oftentimes we cancel and then 2 weeks later you don't even remember what you canceled for. So I love that approach. Kai and Abdul, you both have experience working through the NBA, or basketball, I should say, within Africa. Kai with Afro Games, Abdul with the NBA partnership there. And knowing that the last 6 MVPs were actually non-American basketball players, would love to just understand a little bit better kind of like what's the impact that Black American culture is having there, and then also the reverse of that. Like, what's different that you're seeing that we're not in tune with currently?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to South Africa right now, there's a kid that watched Fresh Prince of Bel-Air just like I did. I watched, Family Matters and all the Saved by the Bell, any TV show you could think of that I used to watch Saturday morning cartoons, they watched the same thing. They didn't get an opportunity to consume content that represented them. So they consumed a lot of American content. So that's hip hop, that's the way we dress, that's the way we speak, right? So unfortunately, now you have people meet and the first thing that they say are slurs and things of that nature. But one of the things that's good about internet penetration is that it's allowing people to democratize information in real time. They're able to like really learn and absorb things. So the partnership with the BAL is an important one in that the Basketball NBA and the Basketball Africa League is trying to grow basketball across the continent. And anyone that knows the continent knows we're a soccer. The continent is about soccer, football. A lot of them will be upset at me if I call it. You know what I mean?
That's the Bronx. That's the Bronx.
That's the Bronx, right? So, so with the BAL, we're able to bring a little bit of the culture outside of the basketball to get an affiliation between the culture and basketball, similar to what hip hop did for basketball here in America, right? Everybody references that commercial with Jadakiss and AI, and that commercial changed everything in advertising for people. So similarly, we want to implement some of those strategies into what we're building with the Basketball Africa League, because we've seen Joel Embiid, we've seen a few, Giannis Antetokounmpo, although he represents Greece, he's Nigerian.
Yeah.
We get to see a lot of players, and one of the things that I see as an opportunity is that, young kids who may have been able to play basketball so many years, just never had an opportunity right there on the continent. There were so many barriers, whether it's, barriers to wealth, barriers to travel, right? Some African countries, it's difficult for them to cross borders, right? So now the game is coming directly to them. That gives them an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to explore other career options, not just in basketball, but maybe behind the scenes as well.
For sure, and I think that was exactly my experience as well. And so, as Valerie, as an agency, our first execution was in Johannesburg this year, specifically for an exhibition that we called Afro Games, which the intention was to bring the excitement to the sport of basketball to the people who already had some semblance of an interest in the city of Johannesburg and throughout South Africa. And so one of the biggest things that was exciting and remarkable for me to experience was to learn that. That was maybe my 3rd time on the continent, and South Africa as a country itself has its own flavor. And so the first focus group that we did was with a group of boys between the ages of 16 to 22. And what I learned is very similar to a conversation I had with some colleagues over the last couple of days about culture. They absorbed so much of Black American pop culture growing up, but what they've been able to, so yes, they know LeBron James. Do you like basketball? Basketball's okay, but I love LeBron James, but I love this basketball player. I love Steph Curry. I want to shoot like Steph Curry. I want to do all of these things. And that's a part of that Black popular culture. That's the culture that's been able to rise just out of, the communities that we share. And now everyone's talking about it. Everyone's excited about it. And then what I was able to see was this ability to kind of put their own twist on it and build their own flavor around it, and therefore building their own culture and language and principles and things that were important to them. And so as we were building Afro Games and trying to figure out what's the balance between the culture that, as we know it coming from the United States, and the culture that lives in the streets of Johannesburg, like what is that balance for us to gain permission to build this experience? And what we found is we know what we could bring to the table. We can bring what you saw on TV to the table, but we partnered with a lot of the folks around, like the dudes from Back to the City and folks from Paramount Africa as well, to kind of just lean into who their influencers were. And so I was excited to see that, like, while, there's pop stars everywhere, like the people that were the plug were the DJs. Like, when's the last time you really loved your DJ like that here in the States? And that's not necessarily the case, but over there, like, they are celebrities. They are the ones bringing the people. They're the influencers who folks are listening to. And so we had to switch up our strategy from focusing on, like, man, who can we bring from over here, to how do we get in really good with the DJs there to trust us so they can kind of bring the crowd. And I loved that, because it was almost like looking in a mirror, but the mirror was flipped, and we understood that there were principles that were more important to the people there, and we leaned into that and let them guide us. And so it looked like home and it felt like home, but we knew it was different. And we were able to build something that was almost like a shared experience between over here in the States and in Johannesburg.
I love that. And Melissa, as you continue with Content for Change and continue to develop across the diaspora, what are some of the things that you're bringing from Black culture into or across the diaspora, and some of the things that you're taking away to bring here?
So I believe strongly that Black culture is pop culture. It starts and ends with us, no matter what country, island, state you're coming from. It might trend in different ways at any given moment in time, but the face of it is going to be Black. And so really at Paramount, at corporate, making sure that we are tapping into MTV Africa. We recently did an event at the Gathering Spot in Atlanta, brought down Nick Cannon, DC Young Fly, Pretty V, and we simulcast live to a cohort of African college students out of Johannesburg. And so it was really important to have the dialogue with our HBCU students who were in the house in Atlanta and those that are on the continent. And we saw the similarities, but they also educated themselves on the differences. And they had it at such a level where we, as the OGs in the room, we had to step back and say, y'all run the show now. And then come back to us and tell us what we need to be doing different, so that what you're talking about here is reflective of what we are showing, because we have the keys to the castle to make that happen, but you are the keys to the culture.
Yes, come on, keys to the culture.
And I feel like, just to add to that, I think that's the challenge to advertisers and companies that are interested in. There has to be a position from a point of wanting to learn and understand each other more, right? Because that nuance is important, right? Just kind of learning about each other and activation. Throughout the past 8 years, what we've learned is, it's easy to just kind of like bring Black people together, but it's another thing for them to understand each other and speak to each other and be able to have that dialogue that's progressive, that's going to allow us to grow. So I love what you guys did there.
For sure. So pivoting to that point, as we do, this is Advertising Week, and we have advertisers in the room, marketers and so forth. What would be your challenge to them? Like, you just touched on a piece of it, but what other challenges do you want to pose to them as we look to continue to drive Black culture forward? And we don't want them to be culture vultures, and we know they need us in the room. So what are your words that you want to impart on them?
I'm going to pay Black people. I definitely would start there, but just really just kind of take your time to understand, take your understand to learn, to do some research, to speak to people. I think there are a lot of people that have started amazing companies that are doing some amazing things, and that are worth the look, that are worth just kind of the conversation, just to understand and give them pointers on where they can grow and how they can dive into the world that we're going in. I think when we started, we had to prove ourselves over and over. And I remember each year telling people, like, yo, we those guys. Year 1, year 2, year 3, and up until the year of return. And then eventually it didn't matter what they thought, because the entire world was paying attention to what we were doing. during that period in December, right? So they galvanized and came to us, but some support would have taken us to a different level had we had that earlier.
But I would say stop tapping the same well. I feel like folks mark someone as safe and they continue to go back to that same person. It's the same voice. I'm rolling my eyes every time I see the same. Like, I want all Black people to be paid, but there's a lot of us that need to be paid.
Yeah.
And so, like, do the culture check, tap in with young people, and those young people come from non-traditional career and education backgrounds too. It's not just HBCU students, because you know that's what's trending right now. That comes with a point of privilege. There are people from, you know, folks that got later starts in life that do not have degrees. We just recently launched an ad campaign with Puma, and the RFP was created specifically for those that come from a program geared towards those from non-traditional career and education backgrounds. And folks without degrees that were barbers in their past life, that worked at Target, now have an international ad campaign with Puma. And so they're brilliant minds. They are out there. Go outside of your universe. Stop tapping the same well is what I would share.
And I think what I have to say is very similar to what both of you are saying, but I would ask, beg, even invest early. I find that on the advertising side, you know, we need to take ownership that this business follows trends and hounds trends down and beats them into the ground until nobody cares about it anymore. And that's whack. Like, it's why we talk so much about why things feel inauthentic and why it didn't work. And, you know, there's so many things that were going on even in the trades this week about what brands had to pull what ad and all of these things. And it's because you're following trends that have already passed. And I think what's important is if you get in touch with the actual community and engage with them in ways that they are already engaging, and speak with them about the things they're conversing about, instead of trying to say, hey, I'm demure too. Invest in demure before demure is the tagline on the t-shirt is what I would encourage, because that's when it feels authentic. That's what we're trying to do with Valerie, is really create for real life and real conversations for real communities. And so if other agencies would do that, I think it'd be a more authentic industry. But since they're not, I'm here for anybody that needs me.
And to that point, thank you so much. You heard Kai and Valerie. Melissa is over at Paramount creating change. Abdul is running things all December if you're going to be in Ghana. It would be remiss for you not to go. But
Cape Town.
Come on, we expanding now. But these are just three wonderful examples of trailblazers who are ensuring that our culture is not only protected but represented properly and spreading globally. So I thank you all for joining me today. Thank you for engaging with Group Black, and thank you all for coming.